Welcome back to The Brokest Guy in the Room. This is your host, Chris Kushner. This episode is entitled Having a Relationship with Your Emotions. Today was a really interesting day for me. I started today waking up feeling uninspired, unmotivated. I struggle with this a lot. When I'm feeling inspired and motivated, my creativity flows and I'm able to write poetry and do things that help other people lift up. And when it goes away, it can be so hard for me to find it again. You know, usually I have to look in all the places that I don't want to look, for lack of a better way to say it. You know, there's a phrase that I live by. It's one of the many things that I have tattooed on my arms here, and it's that all good things are born of discomfort. What that means to me is that you have to look for the uncomfortable situations because the uncomfortable situations provide the opportunities to grow. And that's most certainly been the case with me. So as I was feeling this way this morning, I really tried to lean into it. My stomach was hurting. Those of you who are just tuning in. So I live with Crohn's disease and anemia. And this is kind of the big battle of my life. And one of the things that I've learned about Crohn's disease is that it really behaves a bit like a bully. At least in my case. I can't speak to other people with the disease. But for me, when I give into it and I let it immobilize me, it amplifies. It doesn't help. Laying down and resting is not the answer for me. Usually I have to do something to get my endorphins flowing and my blood flowing. I have to go work out. I have to go do yoga. Or I have to sit in meditation and really, really focus on my breath work to help get things moving. Well, today I did just that, and as difficult as it was to do, I went to one of my favorite gyms here in Bali, Brothers Gym on Batu Belong in Canggu. And I got a really great workout in. I was feeling good, and I had a feeling I was going to get inspired. Now, around this time, a friend of mine here, who I've spoken about in the past, his name is Sebastian. Sebastian is a shamanic healer and transformative coach. I met him during the second Yoga Effects hot yoga teacher training that I attended. And he was actually the reason that I stayed for another month, much creating many challenges in my life back home. He offered to apprentice me on manifestation techniques, and what he taught me, I then implemented and used. And after the first manifestation ceremony tied to the full moon here, slowly but surely, all of the things that I desired, all of the things that I was hoping to accomplish started to happen in great succession. They started to materialize so fast that it was alarming even to the people around me, to the point that people started telling me to shut up. They literally started telling me that they were afraid of what I was going to say because they knew it was going to happen. And Sebastian and I have had cyclical challenges that have kind of made it difficult for us to reconnect. So I hadn't heard from him in a bit, and randomly today he messages me. And he says, hey, I'm going to this workshop today at Cafe Coach here in Bali. And immediately my hairs go up. You know, I've got a bit of a thing with coaches. Coaches, therapists, a lot of people who are out there to help other people. Well, to find the good ones, it's like a needle in a haystack. You know, it's a very easy field to get into. People can go take a quick class and get certified, and all of a sudden they're a coach, you know, business coach, life coach. And what I've found from so many of them is that, the business coaches have never really ran a business. They've never started one. They've never created one. They took a course, and now they're teaching it. It falls in the line of those who can't do coach or those who can't do teach, right? And same with life coaches. Most of the life coaches that I've met, when I take a closer look at their life is in shambles. And yet they're willing to take money from other people to give them advice on how to fix theirs. And so I've always had this fundamental sort of issue. And it's a reason that I haven't become a coach, or that I haven't offered my services, because I didn't want to be associated with that. And so for that reason, this podcast and everything I've done thus forward has been 100% self-funded and has been an offering. Nothing more than that. A simple offering for those out there who need it, who can gain something from it. It's free across the board. And, I look to do as much as I can to keep it that way. It's not easy. Certainly, keeping this all up has been a challenge, and learning how to do it and fund it all, it's been a challenge. But somehow, the things that I need to make it happen always seem to show up in my way. Fortunately, I've been shown how to be aware of that. I've been taught to relish the present moment, and to really, sort of expect that those solutions would show up when I have clear intention and clear purpose, and when I'm aware of what I am trying to do and why I'm trying to do it. As long as I am aware of what I'm trying to do and why I'm trying to do it, I'm able to recognize when the tools that I need are going to show up in front of me. At this point, I expect them to show up in front of me, and so it's very easy for me to recognize them right away. Anyway, so this workshop, he tells me, is about finding your voice, right? Now, this is a particularly interesting topic for a guy who in the past 3 weeks used his voice and was received to a viral extent on TikTok, right? The poetry that I write, I had been using to create promotional videos for TikTok, and they were edited videos with B-roll footage and my voice over the background. And the change that I made that caused this explosion was that I got on camera. I decided to, forget all the B-roll, forget all the editing, to let you see me and see the emotion behind it, the person behind it. And I just read, and video after video after video has been, receiving thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of views. And so thank you all for the support. Thank you all for following. It gives me the fuel to keep doing what I'm doing. And so if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, please do show your support. If you really take something from it, I'm going to start offering some subscriptions and some other things, some other exclusive content to help create some revenue, to help keep me doing what I'm doing. But I digress. So the workshop was entitled Finding Your Voice. And I got to look here. The woman that was holding it, her name was Nuna. And let's see, her Instagram is nuna.mindbodyme. And, I didn't know anything about her. Nuna Kamhawi. And Nuna, forgive me if I butchered your name. But I looked to have her on an episode. I actually just asked her, and she's graciously agreed to come on with me and be a part of this as well. And so finding your voice, right? This is something that I've done. I found my voice. And from an early age, I was very gifted with poetry and found that it wasn't difficult for me to express my voice. But in my journey, I used to live in sort of resentment of my own emotions. I often felt that if I allowed my emotions to be present in my decision-making process or to influence my communications or anything like that, that the result would be counterintuitive or counteractive to what I was trying to accomplish. And I used to actually say, one of the phrases that I used to live by was that any decision influenced by an extreme emotion, good or bad, would be a bad decision. Over the course of my transformation, and, at 37 years old, I came to Bali and I went through a massive transformation, both mind, body, soul, inside and outside. I transformed. It's one of the reasons that on my arm here I have tattooed "Born at 37." because at 37 years old, I truly became a different human being inside and out. And a big part of that process, and I hadn't really realized just how big a part of that process until this workshop that I went to. Learning to control my emotions was, or rather, I shouldn't say control, learning to listen to my emotions, right? What I started to realize was that it wasn't the emotions that were driving me wrong. It was my own reaction to my own emotions. It was that I was reacting to something that I wasn't understanding. See, now, on the flip side of it, a couple years later, now I realize that my emotions are the biggest asset that I have. And it's critical that I understand them before I judge and react to them. And so now I've started to use and listen to my emotions to the extent that they are behind every decision that I make. But first, before I can react to them, I have to understand where they're coming from. Just like when you have a difficult conversation with another human being, if you don't understand what they're actually saying and you start reacting to it based on what you think they're saying, the outcome of that conversation can be way far off from what you had intended and what you had hoped, right? Now, I wonder how many of you struggle with this. How many of you feel misled or betrayed by your own emotions? An interesting thing that also came up in this. See, I've struggled with anger and depression. And I know a lot of you out there listening struggle with this on a daily basis. Anger and depression are very, very real challenges. You know, they are tough. And for me, learning to control my anger even grew into, as I started to understand my emotions, learning to fear my anger and learning to, I realized I was being paralyzed by it. See, one of the things in my life, the effect that I've started to learn that I have on other human beings is a very interesting effect. People who get close to me very, very badly want to please me. And when they feel they've let me down or I'm unhappy with what they've done for me, the effect on them can be catastrophic. So much so that I've learned to, I run away. As soon as I feel myself getting angry at something, my tactic has been to isolate myself until it boils down, because the effects, the damage that I do when I react to my own anger can be just absolutely catastrophic. I mean, it breaks people down. It breaks down whatever I've done or whatever I'm trying to accomplish, and leaves me feeling often like I can't use my voice, like I don't get to be angry. And so this is a challenge, right? Because it's an unhealthy behavior. Everybody gets angry. Everybody has all the emotions. And to think for a second that you wouldn't be allowed to have these emotions is a problem. It's no way to live. So what do you do with that? As a result of being angry, people can be passive. They can be passive-aggressive. They can be aggressive, or they can be assertive. And that was one of the topics that she covered in this workshop. And I started really sitting with it and really thinking about just how my own anger, or rather the fear of people's effects of it, can paralyze me. And this is interesting on so many levels because, she asked the question, when's the last time you got angry? And since I've gotten here, we've got this construction project going on. We're building a vacation rental as proof of concept for a real estate management company here. And construction is well behind. It was supposed to be completed when I first arrived in January. And it's still not completed. It's March 14th, and I've now had to extend my stay here another month, even over another month, in order to see it through. And, one of the things I've learned is that when you're starting a business, especially starting an international business, you have to be ready for things not to go according to plan. And another thing that I've learned, given that all things happen for a reason, is that when that happens, when what you're looking at doesn't look how you want it, sometimes that's a message for you to look somewhere else. And I can tell you that had I not stayed, I wouldn't have found the inspiration that I had. I wouldn't have started writing again. I wouldn't have picked this microphone back up to start this podcast again. And I wouldn't have taken a chance to read my poetry on TikTok. And I wouldn't have reached over 1 million people. In the past 3 weeks, I was just adding up the numbers the other day. And just from my poetry videos alone, just from TikTok, over 1 million people have watched them in less than 3 weeks. And leading into that, there was an entire year of weekly efforts that didn't even scratch the surface of a number like that. I don't even think the cumulative views would have been 10,000. All that happened as a result of my disappointment. All that happened as a result of me having to do something I didn't want to do. And I just find that remarkable. So she asked, when's the last time you got, angry? And I realized that I was angry that the construction wasn't happening as it was supposed to. But it wasn't really anger. What it was disappointment. And it wasn't even as much the disappointment in them. It was the disappointment that I had to then pay forward, see, because I couldn't go back home. I couldn't be attentive to my wife, to my businesses, to my properties, to my dogs, my pets, my ferrets, my fish, my dogs, to all these things that I love. I knew that because these guys were disappointing me, I was then going to have to disappoint other people. And that made me angry. And so I had to sit with that. And that's when I started realizing that had these delays not happened, I would have never found this inspiration. And I would have never been able to articulate myself and express myself through this poetry to reach all of you. And so, as I said at the beginning of this episode, all good things are born of discomfort. That phrase really has become a key pillar in my life, in the way that I move about, the decisions that I make, the things that I do. And prior, the Chris of the past, I would have suppressed those emotions. I wouldn't have listened to them. I would have simply probably reacted to them, and that reaction would have yielded negative results. Certainly results that were contrary to what I was trying to accomplish. See, at this point, resulting from the transformation that I went through, coming here a broken, beaten, and angry, humiliated human being, and through learning my emotions, what was really behind them, and in doing so, finding a way to love myself, and in doing so, really rediscovering what my true self was, I then started to realize how to communicate both my needs and my abilities, and understand my abilities and recognize them, and start to recognize the effect they were having on other people. And before long, I was no longer restricting my offerings. I was simply giving into them. And the healing effect that they were having on the people I was trying to motivate and empower was like nothing I'd ever done before. And I realized that, poetry wasn't even the big gift that I was born with. I was born with the ability to convey how I'm feeling so drastically that it actually is infectious. See, when I'm feeling like the light, I can go up and I can light the darkest rooms on this planet. And when I'm feeling like the darkness, I can have the same effect on the brightest rooms on the planet. Well, sitting with that and understanding that became critical. It goes back to why I run away, even to this day, when I'm feeling an overwhelming emotion of anger, because that's not what I want to convey. See, the last thing I want to do is make somebody else on this planet feel angry, feel small, feel weak, feel broken. I have dedicated my life to the perpetual practice of the opposite. I will lift up every human being I come into contact with if it kills me. Because when you find a purpose in your life, it is not something to toy with. It is not something to ignore. It is an obligation. You know, there's a line in a Nick D song that touched me that I reference all the time. And it's purpose is greater than pleasure. And that resonates with me to no extent, because one of the grand epiphanies that I've had about life is that the cure for depression is purpose. I have yet to find something to disprove this. I have yet to encounter a human being that has purpose-driven who is suffering from depression, because there's no time for it. When you're working towards something, it's exciting. It's empowering. It's uplifting. I know that when I start to really struggle with depression, it's because I don't have a purpose at that time. There's no objective for me to accomplish. And so idle hands become the devil's tools, and there I sit and start to slowly self-destruct. I start to slowly make bad decisions or things that are in no way going to help me find purpose or become a better man or be a better human being or go out there and impact somebody, right? What a game change. What a game change. In my case in particular, and we all have demons, but I have been able to learn how to use nutrition and wellness practices and fitness practices to control my Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease, for those of you who don't know, is an inflammatory disorder. It's an autoimmune inflammatory disorder of the intestine and the colon. It behaves very much like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, and a number of other of these conditions. And the issue with this is that what Western medicine offers as a solution to this is an immunosuppressant. Notably, Humira is the one that I was on, which is what they call a biologic. And it's something that actively shuts down your immune system. And so, as you might have mentioned, this very expensive drug, when I started taking it, I started to become dependent on other drugs because I was constantly getting sick. And over the course of a few years, this grew to be absolutely debilitating. The first month of the pandemic, depression settled in. I had one of the worst Crohn's flares I've ever had in my life. It lasted an entire month. And I did everything to make it worse by feeding it with alcohol because I was depressed. I was on the couch. And slowly but surely, I just started drinking every day to try and knock myself out to get through it. Not to snap out of it, to survive it. And that's a critical distinction. You know, I was being driven by emotions I didn't understand and reacting to them and having an outcome that certainly was not one that I would desire or benefit from in any way. Well, the next time I stepped on the scale, and, you know, I live and die by fitness, you know, I used to be 220 pounds. And the next time I stepped on the scale, I was 180 pounds. And an alarm went off. And suddenly that was the wake-up call that I needed. That was my own personal rock bottom of my wellness journey. And I started to look for a change because I realized that I was going to die, if not from my physical conditions, from my emotional conditions, because I was falling apart. And I needed to find a way to break the cycle. Thankfully, you know, and it would be the result of an ad I saw on Instagram for a week of partying in Bali. And I would decide that I was going to just go, you know, run away to Bali as if partying was the solution. Yeah, well, 3 days in, my disease took over again, and I had to find a different route. And so I ended up at Soham Wellness Center. And, you know, that was the first in a long series of events that led to me completely transforming my mind, body, and soul through yoga, through writing, through breath work, through various different healing techniques, cranioenergy healings and chakra cleansings, or aura cleansings and chakra balancings, and all of these different things that started to transform me as a human being from the broken, angry, bitter, wounded animal that came here to the healer that stands before you. And it's been an incredible journey, I can tell you. Somebody said to me when I first got here that Bali's where the world's broken things go to heal, and that was certainly the case for me. And now I've repurposed my life to help lift other people up. You know, it's why I'm chasing this dream of having an educational program here that would offer free English and environmental awareness lessons to kids by trading free stays. So the villas are a part of that. Once I get enough rooms, I'll be able to offer a free trip to paradise, right? Come stay for a month. Catch is you're going to teach English to kids and teach kids about environmental awareness for a few hours a day. So that's my 10-year plan. That's what I'm working towards. That's what all these efforts are going to. Along those lines, I'm going to take a quick second to thank TikTok because TikTok became the gasoline that lit this fire that really helped get my message out to millions of people. And right now there's a bill in Congress to ban TikTok. And I just want to put out there to anyone who's benefited from it, because there's a lot of information on TikTok, and it behaves how you use it. I've heard people say things like TikTok is just this, TikTok is just that. TikTok feeds you what you look for. And so what your TikTok feed is a reflection of your desires and what you've looked for. And that's the simple truth of the algorithm. Be wary of making the ignorant statement that TikTok is this, because it certainly exhibits what you are and your limited understanding of it. But I, for one, am in complete support of TikTok. I think banning it would be a crime. And so, I encourage anyone listening to call your representative at Congress and let them know how you feel and let them know that you stand with it as well, if we have your support. Along those lines, getting back to, my own struggle with emotions, and the epiphany was that my emotions weren't the problem. My problem was that I wasn't understanding my own emotions and I was reacting to them, and the message that I was putting out was not my real truth. It was not coming from the real me. It was coming from a distorted, manipulated version that was reacting to emotions they didn't understand, that was reacting to an environment that was different than the one perceived. I was reacting to my perceptions, not to my reality. And that caused me to have results in my life that weren't what I wanted. And the moment that I flipped that perspective, see, my life didn't change. My perspective did. But with that change of perspective, I was able to change my life. And in a span of 2 years, I went from a man who was suicidal to a man who is living a life that you couldn't even dream of. My life is amazing now. And I have more love for myself than I could have ever dreamed. And to think I came so close to not knowing what it feels like to wear this skin. I have my emotions to thank for that. And I have my awareness of my true self to thank for that and the transformation I went through. And everybody and everything that was a part of it. So thank you. And that includes my loved ones, my enemies, just the same. Everyone who's taken advantage of me, everyone who's helped me, everything that was in my way, and everything that opened the door to give me way. All of it played equal part. And if it had any one of those things changed, I wouldn't be here today. So moment of gratitude for all of those things. With that, I'm going to close out this episode with something I just wrote. And I will be back for more on this topic. As I said, I look to have some interviews and future guests because this is a big one. This is a hell of an onion, and there's many layers to it to unpeel. I used to think that my emotions betrayed all my desires. Trying to solve my problems felt more like starting fires. As a result, I tried to push them back and go numb to their effect. But then my truest self began to suffer from neglect. Feeling damned by every outcome, I had to find a better way. So I sat with my emotions to hear what they had to say. What they told me made me realize all that I'd misunderstood. Suddenly, the feelings that I thought were bad revealed that they were good. I had to learn how they reacted to what I was feeding them. They were not the enemy, but rather my truest friend. Now I listen when they speak so that I can understand that they are simply guiding me to become a better man. Emotions. That's all for this week, guys. Again, just thank you all for listening. Thank you for your massive show of support. A couple quick announcements. I'm going to be putting out some T-shirts that are going to feature some quotes from my inspirational poetry with the tag The Emotional Healer on the back, hashtag BGIR on the front, and a QR code on the bottom to take you to all the social. And so those will be available for purchase on the bgir.me website coming soon, and a lot more to come. So stay tuned, stay a part of this journey. There's a lot more growth, transformation, and motivation to come. I'm going to be in Bali for another month here. And during that time, I hope to interview some other people who've gone through this. I know a lot of people here who have incredible stories to tell, and I hope for the opportunity to share them with you all. So until next time, my friends, this is your host, Chris Kushner, with endless love and gratitude, saying namaste.